Rachel thought marriage meant partnership. Instead, she got bills, betrayal, and a mother-in-law who treated her home like her own. But everything changes on a rainy bus ride. One public humiliation shatters Rachel's silence and sets her on a path to reclaim her life, her home, and her voice. Hello family, welcome to True Life Stories. Please subscribe and leave a like for us, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The ink had barely dried on the marriage license when Rachel unlocked the front door of the little craftsman-style home she had grown up in. It still smelled faintly of cedar and lemon polish, her dad's favorite cleaning combo. She stepped inside, balancing a box of mugs in one hand and her purse slung across the other shoulder. Nathan followed behind, arms loaded with his gaming equipment and a duffel bag full of clothes. "Well," she said, turning around and exhaling, "welcome home." Nathan dropped the bag with a soft thud on the hardwood floor and gave the space a once-over. "Cozy," he said, not smiling. "A little lived in." Rachel smiled through it. "It is lived in. My dad built this place with his own hands after he got back from Vietnam. Every corner has history." Nathan didn't reply, just wandered into the kitchen and opened the fridge, which hummed louder than it should. He didn't say anything about the new groceries she had stocked in preparation for their move. No thank you. No comment on the housewarming meal she'd already prepped and stored in the freezer. She busied herself unpacking, placing a photo of her parents on the bookshelf, next to the wedding frame she had picked out. Nathan reappeared in the living room, rubbing the back of his neck. "Listen," he began, not looking at her. "I've been thinking about Mom." Rachel paused, a dish towel in her hand. "Okay, she's not doing so great since Dad passed. The condo's a little too much for her to manage. I was thinking we let her have it. Give her some peace of mind." Rachel blinked. "Give her your place?" Nathan nodded, sitting on the arm of the couch like he owned it already. "I mean, we're living here now. What's the point of keeping the condo if we don't need it?" Rachel hesitated. She had assumed they'd rent it out, maybe save a little. Nathan was still working his mid-level programming job, and she was juggling a teaching salary. They hadn't really talked long-term finances. But she understood loss. She had buried both her parents by 28, and she couldn't bring herself to say no. "If that's what you think is best," she said quietly. Nathan looked relieved, but he didn't say thank you. Instead, he changed the subject to internet speeds and whether her home office could handle his gaming setup. That night, Rachel lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan. Nathan was asleep beside her, snoring softly, his phone still glowing on the nightstand. She turned away from the light and curled up around the faint ache in her stomach. Not from anything physical, just a vague tightness, a flicker of unease. The next morning, she found a mug missing from the drying rack. Nathan had taken it with him to his mom's condo, now officially hers. No goodbye note. No message. Just the quiet rearrangement of what she thought their life would be. And so it began, not with a fight, not with drama. Just with a decision made for her. The rain had returned, Seattle's most faithful companion. Rachel stood by the window in her robe, mug in hand, watching streaks of water chase each other down the glass. The house was unusually quiet, save for the hum of the old refrigerator and the occasional creak in the floorboards. Nathan was still asleep. It was nearly 10 a.m. He hadn't gone into work in 3 days. At first, it was, "I need a mental health day," then "they're cutting hours anyway," and now nothing. Just silence. Rachel sipped her tea, her free hand brushing across the swell of her stomach. 12 weeks. She had taken the test on a Thursday morning before work and spent the entire day in a daze, alternating between excitement and low-grade panic. She had told Nathan that night over dinner. He had paused mid-bite and stared at her for a long second. "That's soon," he had said. "Not congratulations. Not I'm happy. Just soon." He hadn't brought it up again. Now she stepped into the living room and saw him on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling through his phone. A bag of chips sat open on the floor, and the TV played some low-volume true crime show. Nathan didn't look up. "Morning," she offered. He grunted. "You were stomping around. Figured I'd get up." She sat across from him. "Are you going to log in today? Or call HR? I got laid off." Rachel blinked. "What?" Nathan kept scrolling. "Last week. They emailed. Budget cuts." Her heart dropped. "Why didn't you tell me?" He shrugged. "Figured you had enough on your plate." Rachel stared at him, mouth open, 100 thoughts rushing to fill the space where understanding was supposed to live. "So, what's the plan?" she finally asked. "We've got bills and—" "I'll figure it out," he snapped, eyes still on his screen. "Nathan," she said more firmly, "we're bringing a child into the world. We can't coast on my salary alone. I've been paying the mortgage, the utilities, groceries, your car note, and now you're sending money to your mom." Nathan looked at her now, his face flat. "She's family. She needs help." "And what about me?" Rachel asked, her voice breaking just slightly. "You're fine. You've got a job. Stop making everything a thing." Rachel stood slowly, her hands shaking. "This isn't about drama. This is about respect." He rolled his eyes. "God, you sound just like my mom. She says I need to man up and stop letting you run the show." Rachel didn't speak. She walked to the kitchen and leaned on the counter, swallowing the tears. Hormones, she told herself. But it wasn't just hormones. It was exhaustion. It was disbelief. Later that evening, she logged into her online banking account to review what she could cut. Streaming services canceled. Gym membership paused. She made a note to start packing her lunch instead of buying anything from the school cafeteria. Every penny mattered now. Nathan didn't come to bed that night. He fell asleep on the couch, the glow of his phone still on his face. The next morning, he said nothing. He ate the eggs she made and didn't notice the way her hands trembled holding the pan. He kissed her cheek, perfunctory and cold, and she felt herself flinch. At school, she smiled at her students. She answered emails. She graded essays. And in the staff lounge, she quietly ordered prenatal vitamins on her phone. That week, Nathan applied to 2 jobs and gave up after one callback didn't go his way. Rachel, meanwhile, took on 2 tutoring sessions after school to cover the gap. She was 6 weeks from her second trimester. Her ankles were already swelling. The first time she cried, really cried, was in the teacher's bathroom during lunch. She had dropped her salad, and it wasn't the salad, it was everything. When she got home, Nathan was playing video games. Deborah was on speakerphone, asking if she could borrow $100 for some groceries and maybe a little something extra. Rachel sent it. From her account. That night, she didn't cry. She lay awake beside him, one hand on her belly, the other curled under her pillow like it could hold up her whole life. The email arrived on a Thursday evening, buried between a baby registry coupon and her school's weekly newsletter. Subject: Mom needs to stay with us for a bit. No greeting. No discussion. No question mark. Rachel stared at the screen, blinking. She called out, "Nathan?" He was in the living room, halfway through a game, headset on. "What? Did you just email me about your mom moving in?" He didn't pause the game. "Yeah. Her lease is up at the end of the month. She can't afford to renew." "And she's coming here?" Rachel asked, walking toward him slowly, the baby shifting in her belly like even he knew something was off. Nathan finally pulled off his headset, annoyed. "It's temporary, okay? She's between places. Rent's crazy. It's not like we're using the guest room." "She has a condo," Rachel said quietly. "She had a condo. She signed it over to me when I gave it to her. It's under my name now, but she sold it. Needed the cash." He shrugged like it was out of his hands. Rachel stood there, stunned. "So she took the condo, sold it, spent the money, and now she's moving into my house?" "Our house," he corrected, though it was still in her name. She didn't reply. She didn't yell. She didn't even cry. She just walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the toilet lid for 20 full minutes, counting every breath. Deborah arrived that Sunday with 3 large suitcases, a blender, and a cat named Muffin that Rachel had never heard of. "Oh, sweetheart," Deborah chirped as she stepped in, dropping her bags onto the hardwood floor with a loud thump. "You look so tired. Pregnancy already dragging you down." Rachel forced a smile. "It's the third trimester. That's kind of what it does." Deborah wandered through the house like a realtor, inspecting cabinets, peeking into closets. "You sure there's not more space in the master for my recliner? I get back pain if I sit on just any sofa." Rachel stood frozen at the kitchen sink, the dish soap still running into the basin. Over the next week, Deborah's temporary stay turned into a complete occupation. Her things began to multiply. A box of vitamins on the bathroom counter, her face creams in the medicine cabinet, canned food stacked in the pantry. She never asked. She just moved in as if the house had been waiting for her all along. Nathan, meanwhile, became more and more withdrawn. His job search had stalled. He blamed the economy. The job market. "It's rigged," he muttered one morning, chewing cereal while Rachel packed her lunch and wiped down the stove. "You applied to anything this week?" she asked gently. He waved her off. "I'm working on a pitch deck for an app idea. Real estate AI." Rachel stared at him. "You can't code." "I'll outsource it once I get funding," he replied, as if it made sense. It was now Rachel's daily routine. 5:45 a.m., wake up. Cook breakfast for 3 adults. 7 a.m., leave for work. 4:30 p.m., return. Shop. Clean. Start dinner. 6 p.m., hear Deborah complaining that she used too much salt or not enough garlic. 7:30 p.m., grade papers. 9 p.m., cry quietly in the shower. Nathan never offered help. Not with cooking. Not with cleaning. Not with her feet, swollen to the size of sweet potatoes. Once, Rachel asked if he could take out the trash. He replied, "You're home earlier. Why not just do it before you sit down?" Another time, Deborah said, "You know, Rachel, my husband used to handle everything. I didn't lift a finger when I was pregnant. That's how men used to be. Providers. These days." Rachel didn't respond. She swallowed every word like it was broken glass. One evening, after a long day of back-to-back classes, a student's tantrum, and Braxton Hicks contractions, Rachel got home to find the living room completely rearranged. Deborah had moved the recliner into a corner of the room, Rachel's reading nook, and replaced the soft lamp with a blinding floor light. "Muffin likes the warmth there," Deborah explained. Rachel didn't say a word. She went to the kitchen, made herself a sandwich, and ate it over the sink like a ghost in her own home. She kept a spreadsheet now, every dollar spent, every hour worked, every need ignored. It wasn't petty. It was survival. The doctor warned her about stress. Her blood pressure had ticked up. She'd need to monitor it closely. At the next appointment, when asked if she had support at home, Rachel smiled tightly and lied. "Of course," she said. But at night, when she lay in bed alone, Nathan now slept on the couch most nights, citing her pregnancy tossing and turning. She would press a hand against her belly and whisper to her son, "Mommy sees everything. Mommy remembers." It started with a voice memo. Rachel found it by accident. She had gone into the kitchen to grab Nathan's phone. It was pinging non-stop, vibrating off the counter like it wanted to leap out the window. She was worried it might be his recruiter finally calling back. But when she tapped the screen to silence it, the screen lit up with a file name. "Mom Advice, Rachel." She pressed play. It was less than a minute long. "Listen, Nathan, I'm just saying, she's acting real high and mighty lately. Like she's the only one sacrificing anything. Just because she goes to work. She's pregnant, not disabled. You're the man. Don't let her make you feel small in your own house." Rachel didn't finish the recording. Her hand shook as she locked the phone and left it right where she found it. She didn't cry. Not that day. Instead, she poured herself a glass of water and stood at the kitchen window, watching the neighbor's dog chase a squirrel through wet grass. The world kept moving, as if hers hadn't just shifted on its axis. That night, Nathan noticed her silence and misread it. "You okay?" he asked, glancing up from his laptop, where he was building a resume he hadn't touched in a week. Just tired, she replied, folding towels on the couch with stiff hands. Deborah chimed in from the hallway. Pregnancy always made me emotional too. It'll pass. Or it won't. Some women just aren't cut out for the hormone part. Rachel didn't look up. She kept folding. One towel at a time. Each crease sharper than the last. The house no longer felt like hers. Her cozy reading corner now housed Deborah's recliner and Muffin's litter box. The kitchen was rearranged. Deborah insisted it was more efficient her way. Her favorite pan had mysteriously vanished, and every time she asked about it, Deborah claimed it had probably walked out with the trash. Nathan had stopped touching her, except for an occasional hand on her lower back when guests came over. Performative affection. His kisses were quick, dry, and always followed by a glance at his phone. On a Saturday morning, Rachel asked him if he'd come with her to the baby store. They needed a stroller, a crib mattress, and a few more bottles. I was going to have a day to work on my app mock-ups, he mumbled, eyes barely lifting from his screen. I'm 31 weeks, Nathan. I mean, do we need to go today? She looked at him for a long moment, then grabbed her keys. I'll go alone. He didn't stop her. At Bye Bye Baby, she held a car seat in her hands, fighting off a wave of fatigue. A kind older couple beside her looked concerned. You okay, sweetheart? The woman asked. Rachel smiled. Just carrying a bit more than I expected. She wasn't talking about the car seat. That night, she tried to bring it up again, softly, carefully, the way she always had to now. I feel like I'm doing this alone, she said while they got ready for bed. Nathan rubbed his temples. There you go again. Go where? She asked. The guilt trip. The drama. You make everything into a statement. I'm growing a human being, cooking, cleaning, paying all the bills, and you think I'm being dramatic? His eyes hardened. You know what? Maybe if you didn't talk to me like I'm one of your students, I'd actually want to engage. That one stung. And he knew it. She saw it flicker in his face. But he didn't apologize. She climbed into bed, turned away from him, and listened to the sound of Muffin scratching the litter box outside their door like a metronome ticking off the seconds of her resentment. One evening, Rachel sat in her car in the driveway for 25 minutes after work, engine off, headlights dim. It was quiet there. No Deborah's comments, no Nathan sulking, no sound of dishes waiting to be washed. Just stillness. Inside, the baby kicked. She placed a hand over her belly. I'm still here, she whispered to him. I'm still doing this. But she knew she couldn't do it like this forever. The cracks weren't just in their relationship anymore. They were in her spirit. And they were widening. The sky was spitting rain again. Cold, stubborn drops that didn't fall hard enough to justify an umbrella, but soaked you anyway. Rachel stood beneath the crooked awning outside the school building, one hand on her swollen belly, the other gripping her tote bag. She was exhausted, the kind of tired that made her bones ache. 36 weeks pregnant. The plan was simple. Walk 2 blocks to the bus stop, ride 10 minutes, and make it home in time to start dinner. Nathan hadn't answered her texts. Again, Muffin probably ate better than she did these days. She adjusted the scarf around her neck and climbed aboard the 28. The bus was nearly full, every seat taken by people hunched under damp jackets and headphones. Her coat clung to her like a second skin, heavy and warm, too warm. She felt a light wave of nausea pass over her. No one looked up, except a young woman near the front. Late 20s. She wore scrubs and had earbuds in. When she saw Rachel, she stood immediately. Here, ma'am. Please. Rachel wanted to say thank you. Wanted to hug her. Instead, she just nodded and sat down slowly, clutching the pole beside her for balance. Her feet pulsed. Her back screamed. She finally exhaled. 3 stops later, the bus slowed to a squeaky crawl. Rachel looked up just as 2 figures stepped on. Nathan. And Deborah. She hadn't known they were out. She hadn't even known they'd left the house. Deborah spotted her first. Her eyes narrowed. Nathan saw her next and stopped in the middle of the aisle. The moment stretched thin. Then, louder than necessary, Nathan barked. Why are you sitting? My mom's standing. The bus hushed. Rachel blinked. She started, but he was already moving. He walked over, grabbed her by the wrist, and pulled her up from the seat. Her knees buckled. The suddenness of it, like being yanked from a dream. The tote bag slipped off her shoulder and hit the floor with a dull thud. "Sit down, Mom," Nathan said, gesturing toward the seat like he was doing her a favor. Deborah sighed dramatically and settled into the cushion with an audible ah. Rachel stood there, dazed, her hand gripping the cold metal pole, heart pounding against her ribcage. A man in the back muttered something. A few people stared. One woman made a noise, something between shock and disapproval. But no one said anything out loud. Nathan stood beside her, arms crossed. "You didn't have to make a scene." She didn't reply. Her vision swam for a moment. She focused on her breathing. In, out, in, out. She stared out the window as the rain streaked by. She didn't cry there. Not then. Not yet. But something inside her cracked. By the time they reached their stop, the sky had darkened. Deborah waddled off the bus with an unbothered air. Nathan followed. Rachel stepped off last. She walked behind them the whole way home, her feet slapping the wet sidewalk, her eyes fixed on the little flickering porch light ahead. At the front door, Nathan held it open. "You coming in, or?" She didn't answer. She stepped inside, walked straight to the bathroom, and locked the door. Then she sat on the cold tile floor and cried. Cried like she hadn't in years. Not the soft, silent tears of frustration. These were the loud, guttural sobs of someone who had finally seen the truth and couldn't unsee it. She looked down at her belly, her baby boy kicking gently beneath her hands, and she made herself a promise. This ends. After he's here, this ends. The hospital room smelled like bleach and plastic flowers. Rachel lay propped up in the narrow bed, for in one arm, her newborn son nestled on her chest. Logan. 8 pounds, 2 ounces of perfect pink life. He smelled like something sacred, milk and warmth and a clean slate. She ran her fingers gently across the back of his head, his wispy hair damp from birth. Every now and then, he made soft little grunts, the kind that shattered her completely and built her back up in the same breath. Nathan sat slouched in the corner, phone in hand, scrolling. He hadn't touched the baby in hours. Not since the obligatory Instagram photo. Not since he muttered, "He's got my nose," as if that gave him ownership. He had complained about the parking fee. Twice. He had fallen asleep during the delivery. When the nurse brought Rachel water, Nathan asked her if there was anything stronger for the vending machine. Deborah, who showed up an hour late, spent most of the visit talking about how Logan's birth story wasn't nearly as dramatic as mine. Rachel looked at her son and whispered, "We're almost out, baby. Just wait." Back home, the house was quieter than usual, but it wasn't peace. It was the silence of something ending. Rachel moved differently now. Lighter. Focused. She wore her exhaustion like armor. She could stay up all night nursing Logan, and still get up early to prepare bottles and sterilize pump parts. Deborah offered no help. Nathan offered even less. She started making phone calls, quietly, efficiently, while the baby slept. A consultation with a divorce lawyer who specialized in asset protection. A trust account opened in Logan's name, using her emergency savings. A meeting with her school's HR department to confirm her maternity leave protections. She also met with a therapist who listened as Rachel described her life in past tense, as though she were already gone. "She humiliated me for gaining pregnancy weight," she said. "He made me feel like I owed them everything. Like my house wasn't mine. Like my job meant I wasn't a real wife." The therapist didn't interrupt, just nodded and said, "You don't need permission to choose yourself." 3 weeks after Logan was born, Rachel stood in the guest room, Deborah's room, holding a letter in her hand. It was a formal 30-day eviction notice. Legal. Civil clear. She tucked it under Deborah's door without a word. That night, she served dinner without a sound. She held Logan on her hip while she plated the food. Deborah unwrapped the letter after the meal. Nathan read it over her shoulder, his mouth tightening. "You're kidding," he said. Rachel didn't look up. "You're actually kicking my mother out?" When she's done everything for us. Rachel set down her fork. She's done nothing for me. And this is still my house. She sold my condo to help us, he snapped. She sold it to help herself, Rachel corrected, voice calm. You can't just, Rachel, you're emotional. You just had a baby. I'm not emotional, she said. I'm awake. Nathan looked at her like he was seeing a stranger. He tried to soften his tone. I made mistakes, okay? We both did. Let's just talk. But Rachel was already walking out of the room, Logan cradled against her chest. At night, she began sleeping in the nursery, a mattress on the floor, surrounded by diapers and burp cloths and soft lullabies playing from a phone app. It was cramped, quiet, peaceful. Nathan didn't follow her. Not once. On the 30th day, Deborah packed her things in silence. No drama. No goodbye. Just a slammed door and a sniff of disapproval. Nathan followed 2 days later. He stood at the front door, duffel bag in hand, rain soaking the porch behind him. This doesn't have to be it, he said. We have a family now. Rachel looked at him, Logan resting on her shoulder, fast asleep. I gave you everything, she said softly. And you treated it like a burden. People change. Exactly, she replied. And I did. She closed the door. She didn't lock it dramatically. She just let it click shut like the final page of a book she'd finished reading long ago. The morning the divorce papers arrived, the sky was clear for the first time in weeks. Rachel opened the front door to the mail carrier's nod and retrieved the stiff white envelope from the top of the pile. It was heavier than the others, not just in weight, but in meaning. Inside, finality. Her new beginning, printed in black ink and stamped with the quiet authority of the state of Washington. She carried it into the kitchen and laid it flat on the counter beside Logan's bottle sterilizer. The baby stirred in his bassinet, cooing, already content with the sun pouring in through the window. Rachel didn't cry. She smiled. She didn't celebrate, not loudly, but the air in the house shifted. It was lighter, quieter. It smelled like something clean, something beginning. 2 weeks earlier, Nathan had tried to talk her out of it. He met her at a neutral cafe, looking thinner, a little grayer, his beard growing in patches. He ordered a coffee he barely touched. Look, he began, I messed up. I was stressed. I wasn't myself. Rachel said nothing. She stirred her tea. You were the one thing that made sense, he continued. I didn't know how to handle all of it. Losing my job, my mom needing help, becoming a dad. Rachel raised an eyebrow. You didn't become a dad. You became a roommate with opinions. That shut him up for a moment. I can do better, he said, leaning forward. Let me prove it. She set her tea down carefully. Nathan, I needed a partner. I begged for one. I worked for one. And when I was carrying your child, I got resentment and silence. I know, he whispered. I know I failed you. She nodded once. You did. She stood, reached into her bag, and slid a manila envelope across the table. This is everything. The lawyer finalized it this morning. Sign and return it by Friday. Nathan didn't try to stop her this time. He didn't even stand. He just sat there, slumped, as she walked away with a grace he no longer deserved to witness. By the time the documents were signed and returned, Rachel had already started making changes. She painted the living room a pale sage green, replaced Deborah's recliner with a soft rocking chair she bought secondhand, and reupholstered herself. She donated Nathan's dusty gaming console and filled the shelves with Logan's picture books and little ceramic animal figurines she'd been collecting. She found joy in the details, new curtains, the slow rhythm of laundry with baby clothes that smelled like lavender and new beginnings, meals eaten barefoot in the kitchen while Logan napped in a wrap against her chest. The silence in the house no longer felt like absence. It felt like peace. On the first night she realized she was truly alone, and truly okay with it. She made herself a grilled cheese and a glass of red wine. She sat on the porch with a baby monitor by her elbow and watched the stars blink to life. Nathan texted her that night. Thinking of you. Of us. Just miss it. Miss you. She read it once, then deleted it. She didn't need to block him. That would suggest he still had power. He didn't. When Logan turned 3 months old, she threw a small party for just the two of them. She baked a little vanilla cake and wore her favorite linen dress, the one that made her feel like herself again. She held him up to the window, where the sun painted gold across his cheeks. "We made it, little man," she whispered. "We really made it." And in that quiet, candlelit house, her house again, Rachel smiled for real. No pretending. No surviving. Just living. Spring came in slow, golden waves. The cherry trees on Rachel's street bloomed early that year, soft pink blossoms that fluttered like confetti across her lawn. The world looked new, fresh, as if even the sky had decided she deserved better. Inside her house, the quiet hum of a new life buzzed gently through every room. Logan was 5 months old now, plump with curiosity. He had discovered his laugh, a bright, unfiltered sound that made every wall feel warmer. He laughed when she kissed his belly, when she made animal noises, when Muffin jumped onto the couch and immediately regretted it. Rachel had started to laugh again, too. Not the polite kind she used to use at Nathan's dry jokes. Not the brittle, strained kind that masked discomfort. Real laughter. The kind that echoed. The kind that healed. She had made changes, slowly, thoughtfully. The guest room, once Deborah's passive-aggressive territory, had been transformed into a little studio. A writing nook, a bookshelf, a soft area rug. A place just for her. She had begun documenting her story, journaling, blogging, even sharing small snippets anonymously on forums for single mothers and survivors of emotional abuse. Her inbox quickly filled with messages from women who said things like, "You put into words what I couldn't. Your story made me leave. You reminded me I deserve peace." Rachel replied to every one. Financially, she'd stabilized. Her school had offered her a flexible schedule once she returned from maternity leave. She started tutoring in the evenings again, saving up a little more each month. Logan's trust fund sat untouched, growing slowly, securely. She didn't splurge often, but on Logan's 6-month milestone, she bought herself a new bed. A real one, firm, queen-sized, with linen sheets that didn't scratch her skin. The first night she slept in it, alone but not lonely, she cried. But not from pain. From pride. Nathan still reached out every now and then. Messages that began with "Hope you're doing okay," and ended with "Wish I'd done things differently." She never replied. She didn't hate him. She just wasn't his anymore. Not in any way that mattered. One bright Saturday, Rachel loaded Logan into his stroller and walked downtown. They passed the bookstore, the park, the coffee shop with the floral wallpaper she used to love. She bought herself an iced chai and sat outside with Logan gurgling on her lap. A woman at the next table leaned over. "Your son is gorgeous," she said. Rachel smiled. "Thank you. He's everything." "You're glowing," the woman added. "New mom." Rachel looked at her son, who was trying to eat his sock. Then she looked up and said, "Yeah, new mom. New everything." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the pine trees, Rachel stood barefoot in the backyard, holding Logan against her chest. The garden beds were sprouting. The soil she had turned with her own hands was coming to life. She swayed gently, humming to him, her chin resting on the top of his head. "Do you know how brave we are?" she whispered. The wind carried her voice away like a secret the world already knew. And for the first time in a long time, Rachel didn't feel like a survivor. She felt like a woman reborn. Months later, a package arrived, no return address. Inside, a baby onesie, size 12 months, and a note written in a familiar, shaky hand. "I'm sorry for everything. If you ever decide to forgive me, I'll be here. Nathan." Rachel folded the note and tucked it in the back of a journal she no longer needed to write in. Forgiveness wasn't about him. It was about her freedom. And she had already chosen that.